Cameras catch the flash before the storm as I step into a Capitol hallway that oozes tension like fresh paint. Microphones bristle, phones glow, and the buzz isn't about policy. It's about the glamour shot heard across D.C. Melania Trump, immaculate and ice-calm, leans into the press line and drops a half-smile sharper than a camera's shutter. If some people cared as much about results as they do about sound bites, our country would be better off. She doesn't say Jasmine Crockett's name, but the shadow lands perfectly. Murmurs slide across tile. Producer's mouth, "Did you see that?" And handlers pretend not to. I edge closer, recorder up, when a staffer whispers that the comment was defending her husband from performative attacks. The phrase sticks, sweet and poisonous, the kind of line that travels farther than context. Minutes later, Jasmine rounds the corner, stride steady, eyes lit like stage lamps, aware of the quote, but not weighed down by it. She pauses long enough to clock the cameras, then keeps moving. It's the confidence of someone who knows the room and knows the receipts. What Melania served wasn't a policy critique. It was a velvet-sheathed dagger, polished, photogenic, and aimed at credibility. You could feel the calculation. Defend the brand, freeze the frame, draw a bright line between glamour and grit. Commentators pounce, stitching together B-roll of rallies and gala staircases, humming that old tune about style versus substance. But the melody is off-key today because Jasmine's file is a stack of late nights and hard votes. I follow as the corridor funnels into a press scrum. A mic is thrust forward. Did Jasmine hear the remark? She nods once, no theatrics, and that restraint makes the lens lean in even closer. In this town, silence can be louder than a headline, and Jasmine is letting the silence do reconnaissance. The question is whether she answers with a clean clapback or something heavier, something that lingers after the clip ends. Because Melania's line wasn't just shade, it was an invitation, a high society dare dressed in couture, asking Jasmine to swing and miss. And when she finally opens her mouth, it won't be to trade sparkles for sparks, it will be to set a narrative on fire. And the first ignition point, a trusted source says, is about to arrive from the only place that outruns spin, on the record truth. Evidence, not echo. Reporters tighten their semicircle as Jasmine steps into full view, the overhead lights turning her expression into something carved rather than painted. There's no rush in her voice when she begins, just a measured cadence that slices cleaner than any insult could. If Mrs. Trump believes leadership is a runway, then maybe she should stick to fashion weeks, Jasmine says, her tone calm but edged, the kind of delivery that makes even veteran journalists glance at each other. The line detonates instantly. Phones leap from pockets, hashtags are born mid-keystroke, and you can practically hear the digital gears grinding as social media primes for the clip. Melania's remark had been sugar-dusted shade. Jasmine's reply is raw cinnamon and steel, leaving no aftertaste of hesitation. She pivots, not lingering on the jab, but anchoring her words in policy receipts. Bills drafted, funding secured, communities rebuilt after storms that cable news barely mentioned. I show up where the cameras don't, she adds, and the phrase hits harder than a rally chant, because everyone here knows visibility in politics is currency. This is where the dynamic shifts. Melania had painted Jasmine as a performance, but Jasmine reframes herself as substance with a side of scorched earth charm. A correspondent in the back mutters, "She flipped it, and they're right." The narrative just inverted in real time. The press scrum swells, elbows nudge, and questions fly faster, some begging her to expand the feud, others fishing for a misstep. But Jasmine's not biting. She controls her tempo, dropping just enough barbed wit to feed the headline machine while keeping the focus pinned to her work. Behind her, aides exchange quick nods. This is exactly the energy they wanted, controlled burn instead of wild blaze. Melania's team, somewhere across town, will be scrubbing through playback by now, assessing whether their first volley landed or backfired. And as the crowd parts, Jasmine doesn't retreat. She advances toward the rotunda, each step a reminder that she's not just defending her record, she's claiming the stage Melania thought she owned. By the time Jasmine reaches the rotunda, the air is electric, charged with the kind of suspense that only a public spat between political figures can generate. Cameramen reposition, hoping to catch the next sound bite, while aides from rival offices pretend to be on urgent calls, but keep their eyes locked on her. The marble floor reflects her stride, steady and deliberate, as though she's walking a catwalk of accountability. Just as she's about to exit toward the committee wing, a bold reporter calls out, "Congresswoman, are you accusing the former First Lady of being out of touch?" Jasmine stops dead center under the dome, the acoustics amplifying her voice. "If you have to ask whether someone's connected to the struggles of ordinary Americans," she says, "they probably aren't. No names, no theatrics, just a clean, quotable gut punch wrapped in poise." The press corps reacts like they've been fed red meat, and within seconds the remark is trending, spliced against images of Melania in designer gowns. Political commentators swarm cable segments, some praising Jasmine's restraint, others calling it a masterclass in strategic shaming. Meanwhile, whispers drift through Capitol hallways. Melania, they say, is preparing a response, maybe even a public appearance to clarify her intent. The idea of her re-entering the fray only fuels the spectacle. Jasmine, unfazed, moves toward her office, already fielding calls from grassroots organizers thanking her for saying what needed to be said. In the background, her staff quietly begins drafting a statement, not a defensive rebuttal, but an open challenge for a televised policy debate. It's a daring move, knowing Melania's brand thrives on image more than legislative detail. And if Melania refuses, that in itself becomes another headline, another quiet victory in a battle Jasmine never asked for, but now fully commands. The rotunda's echo fades, but the impact of her words doesn't. It's spilling into every newsroom, every feed, every dinner table argument about style, substance, and who really owns the narrative now. The invitation for a policy debate lands in every political newsroom before sunset, stamped with the bold confidence of someone who knows the optics are already in her favor. It's not a combative press release, it's an artfully crafted dare, laced with politeness, sharp enough to cut. "I believe Americans deserve to see our priorities compared side by side," Jasmine's statement reads, and the subtext is louder than any insult. "Meet me on the field where sound bites die." By nightfall, talking heads dissect the challenge, half predicting Melania will sidestep it, half praying she'll take the bait. Social media catches fire with split-screen memes, Jasmine in work boots at a disaster site on one side, Melania stepping off a private jet on the other. The contrast is irresistible. Inside Melania's circle, sources whisper about weighing options and protecting dignity, which only fuels speculation that the First Lady turned political surrogate might be feeling cornered. Meanwhile, Jasmine keeps moving like a player already ahead on the scoreboard. She spends the evening at a community forum, fielding questions on housing reform and education funding, letting local news capture her in the unglamorous trenches where real politics happens. But her allies know the game. This is both governance and theater, and she's mastering both without showing the strain. Across town, in a penthouse suite, Melania reportedly vents to confidants that Jasmine's trying to drag me into her arena, a phrase that leaks within hours and loops endlessly on late-night monologues. The irony, of course, is that the arena is already built, the crowd already roaring, and Jasmine is center stage. By the time dawn approaches, opinion polls begin trickling in, not official surveys, but the informal barometers of modern politics. Trending hashtags, reaction videos, and influencer commentaries leaning heavily in Jasmine's favor. What started as a glancing remark has morphed into a referendum on credibility, and the momentum is visibly tilting. The only question left is whether Melania will risk stepping into the ring or watch her carefully curated image be rewritten in real time. Morning breaks over Washington with a rare sense of anticipation, the kind usually reserved for election nights or major Supreme Court rulings. News anchors lean forward in their chairs, eyes bright with the promise of drama, as producers tease an expected response from Melania Trump. For hours, the city hums with speculation. Would she strike back, brush it off, or attempt a graceful pivot? When her statement finally drops, it's a carefully worded blend of civility and condescension. While I respect all women in public service, I believe we should focus on solutions, not self-promotion, it reads. On paper, it's harmless. In tone, it's a polished backhand, designed to reclaim the moral high ground without igniting a full-scale war. But Jasmine doesn't give it the oxygen Melania hopes for. Instead, she steps onto the steps of the Capitol and launches into a 10-minute address. Not about Melania, but about the issues that sparked the original spat. She talks about food insecurity, voting rights, and rebuilding storm-battered communities, weaving personal stories into policy points with an ease that draws even the most cynical correspondents closer. The brilliance of the move is obvious. She refuses to stay trapped in a personality duel, yet every solution she outlines implicitly underscores the gap between her grounded work and Melania's lofty detachment. Cable news splits the screen. Jasmine's rally on one side, Melania's scripted video on the other, and the visual contrast says more than any commentary could. By midday, hashtags praising Jasmine's focus on substance eclipse the earlier drama entirely, flipping the narrative in a way few strategists could have scripted better. Even conservative pundits admit she's played the long game with precision, turning what could have been a week-long slap fight into a showcase of leadership. Somewhere in the West Wing shadows, aides surely take note. In this chapter, it's not the glamour that wins, it's the grit. And grit, right now, belongs entirely to Jasmine Crockett. By midweek, the ripple effect of Jasmine's strategy is undeniable. Local papers from Dallas to Detroit run front-page spreads of her Capitol Steps address, framing her as a rare figure who can cut through noise without drowning in it. Grassroots donors flood her campaign with small-dollar contributions, many accompanied by messages like, "For standing tall," and "This is the leadership we need." Political analysts, usually allergic to consensus, agree on one point. Jasmine managed to seize control of a narrative she didn't start, turning a perceived slight into a national showcase of her priorities. Meanwhile, Melania's camp grows restless. Leaks suggest tension between her and certain advisors, some urging a bold countermove, others warning that further engagement will only cement Jasmine's advantage. The dilemma becomes fodder for every political talk show, with armchair strategists debating whether the former First Lady miscalculated by targeting someone so adept at reframing attacks. On social media, the mood is shifting from outrage to admiration. People aren't just applauding Jasmine's clapback. They're rallying around her policies, sharing clips of her speeches alongside fact-check threads, dismantling the self-promotion label. Late one evening, Jasmine appears on a prime-time news segment. Not in a studio, but live from a community center still repairing flood damage. When asked about the ongoing feud, she smiles faintly and says, "I'll always defend myself, but my real fight is for them," gesturing to volunteers hauling debris in the background. The clip explodes online, not as a feud update, but as a portrait of authenticity in a city addicted to artifice. And though Melania has yet to respond again, the silence now feels less like strategy and more like surrender. The public, ever hungry for a winner in Washington's endless brawls, has already chosen. And Jasmine's name isn't just trending, it's ascending, wrapped in a narrative she owns completely. By the week's end, the confrontation has evolved into something far larger than a celebrity versus politician headline. It's become a case study in political agility. Jasmine's name now threads through op-eds, political podcasts, and morning show banter as shorthand for handling attacks with both grace and fire. In town halls, constituents quote her lines back to her, not as gossip, but as rallying cries. Show up where the cameras don't. The very remark Melania lobbed as a subtle takedown has, in a twist of poetic irony, become Jasmine's unofficial campaign slogan, printed on handmade signs and trending hashtags alike. Political opponents tread carefully now, knowing she can pivot an insult into a platform in the time it takes for a clip to go viral. Melania's team, once eager to paint her as the arbiter of elegance and poise, retreats into quiet appearances and controlled photo ops. Their earlier momentum dissolved in the wake of Jasmine's grounded authenticity. The media moves on to fresher controversies, but Jasmine's moment doesn't fade, it cements. She closes the week standing in a school gymnasium, surrounded by students asking about civic engagement, her answers weaving hope with hard truths. Cameras roll, but it's the unrecorded exchanges, the hugs, the shared laughter that define her victory. As the scene fades, it's impossible to miss the lesson. Power isn't in the last word, it's in the lasting impression. And for those watching, wanting more than just headlines and sound bites, there's a place where stories like this live and grow. Hit subscribe, stay with us, and let's keep pulling back the curtain on the moments that matter. Because in politics, as in life, the real wins happen where you least expect them.